I love the fact that our bombers are a show of force, not just at air shows, but our adversaries are watching, and when they see our bombers flying, it sends a message, that we're there, we're ready. That's really unique with our fleet, and we should be proud of that.
In this leadership log, we speak with Brigadier General Eric Quigley, the Air Force Program Executive Officer for Bombers. We'll discuss his priorities, his leadership principles, and what excites him most about the Air Force bomber fleet. Can you just give an overview of some of the modernization efforts your team is leading, and what excites you the most about it?
I like it when our bomber fleet makes the news. For example, we sunk a World War II vessel with a quick sink capability, or when we show it, we can do extended range missions with a JASSM weapon off of a B-52. That crews have actually loaded up the weapon and flown with that. Or B-1, like we've actually done creative things like taking a decommissioned aircraft out of the AMARG and brought back. Things like that excite me.
Sir, you became the Program Executive Officer for Bombers back in the spring timeframe. Now that you've had some time in the seat, what is your impression of all the work that the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center is doing to support the bomber fleet?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's been an interesting 4 or 5 months getting up to speed on the bombers portfolio. Here in the Lifecycle Management Center, there's been a big focus on re-optimizing for global power competition. So a lot of people ask us, how does that affect us in bombers? And the answer really is not too much. However, we're kind of in the wait and see mode with the stand up of the Integrated Capabilities Command, which is the new MAGCOM, and more specifically, the Integrated Development Office, who's going to be supporting them mostly from an S&T, science and technology perspective. I think we're going to have a play in that as far as some of the tech insertion that we do for bombers across the fleet, and deliberately go after certain capabilities at the right priority, right? There's been a shift in the acquisition model from focusing just on platforms to actual integrated capability and mission threads, and where is our spot with bombers in the kill chain, specifically the long range kill chain. So I think LCMC has been doing a good job trying to show where we fit in and where all of the capabilities across LCMC fit in with that reorganization. Also, another one is the Rapid Sustainment Office in Lifecycle Management Center. There's a big push for additive manufacturing. Cold spray is one specific example of that. We do across our bomber fleet. So we're working with them and also ENEZ on airworthiness, as it relates to additive manufacturing for non-safety critical parts. So we've been relying on the Rapid Sustainment Office and ENEZ to navigate us through those challenges. And then finally, just the generic, I'd say organized, train, and equip stuff like facilities, people, retention incentives, how we can recruit and retain and attract good talent management in the bomber portfolio. To include, a lot of people don't realize this, but in the Bombers Directorate, we provide the lion's share of the people for the B-21, and their facilities. So LCMC has been instrumental in supporting us with those types of things.
So, sir, I know there's been a lot of big modernization efforts taking place, especially range from efforts to extend the lifespan of the B-52. Can you just give an overview of some of the modernization efforts your team is leading, and what excites you the most about it?
Well, let's start with the B-1. I mean, these are, a lot of people refer to these as our legacy aircraft, but they're actually our operational fleet today. So we like to remind people that they're not necessarily our legacy bomber fleet. They are what we have until we go down to a 2-bomber fleet of the B-52 that is modernized, and the B-21, which will replace the B-2. But there's a lot of complexity there because they are older airframes and a lot of history behind and flight hours on these aircraft, and we're trying to sustain them at the same time we are trying to modernize them. So that's a huge challenge, and the complexity, of how we do that concurrency of modifications. For example, on the B-52, it's a huge effort, and especially later on in this decade, and we call it modification concurrency. So all of our big modernization efforts on the B-52, like our commercial engine, effort, replacement effort, also our radar modernization program, plus all of our NC3 comms, those upgrades and smaller things like the crew cab and the tactical data link. All that is getting done at the same time when it's in for depot maintenance. So that's going to become a challenge. I think making sure our senior leaders believe that we can execute a complex schedule, that we don't impact aircraft availability any more than we have to when we take the jets down and induct them in for these major mods. But at the same time, we keep them available to the warfighter to do a real world mission if called upon. A lot of that is when you ask what excites me the most, it's probably, I like it when our bomber fleet makes the news. So speaking of PA, I talked a little bit at Life Cycle Industry Days, about, for example, we sunk a World War II vessel with a quick sink capability, which is a modified 2,000-pound JDAM. Or when we show it, we can do extended range missions with a JASSM weapon off of a B-52. Cool. That crews have actually loaded up the weapon and flown with that. Or B-1, like we've actually done creative things like taking a decommissioned aircraft out of the AMARG and brought back because of a mishap, to replace an aircraft. Things like that excite me. The fact that we're called upon to do real world missions every day, and that's really cool.
So what is your team, or what do you see as the mission priority?
Our leadership team is still kind of, sifting through some of that. We have a senior leader offsite coming up here in October, where we're really going to dive into the bomber focus areas and more importantly, find ways to measure them. But that actually is one of the 4 priorities I came in with here now that I've been in the seat for a few months. So the first one is supporting what I call our execution divisions, B1, B52, B2, and all of our functionals support those divisions. How can as the leadership team and Bombers Directorate, how can we support the division aircraft availability efforts, right? There's specific goals driven by the MAJCOM, Global Strike Command, that, our aircraft availability rates are at an all-time low for various reasons, whether it's obsolescence management, whether it's supply chain for parts, or whether it's just taking too long to go through the heavy maintenance cycle, PDM. Pick your reason, they're at an all-time low. So we're going to double our efforts. We have something coming up called a supply support workshop, where we're gonna get all of the stakeholders together to come up with a 12-month plan how we quantifiably reduce what we call our S rates, our non-mission capable for supply rates, which then will improve aircraft availability, as an example. So that's going to be our first priority, is support our divisions with AA goals. The second is to improve PEO and senior leader, like our service acquisition executive, awareness on how we're doing with execution. So it doesn't look like such a challenge when we show all this concurrent modification efforts going on at one time, right? Yeah. So how do we show metrics through tools we have today, like PMRT, some dashboards or other metrics, to show the decision makers and get confidence that we can execute what we're promising. So I'd say that's the second one, is improve awareness. 3, I talked about bomber focus areas. I inherited about a half a dozen different bomber focus areas. They are pretty wide open right now. So again, that's going to be the focus of our fall senior leader offsite, where we whittle those down to about 3, maybe 4 focus areas. But then more importantly, we make them measurable, and we have measurable outcomes of those bomber focus areas. And then finally, I think executing a deliberate digital material management strategy within the Directorate. So there's what I like to say to the workforce a lot is there's a difference between what we could do and what we should be doing, right? So with digital material management, there's a propensity where you want to boil the ocean, or with innovation in general, and how we use our data to make decisions. So we kicked off a DMM summit, and now one of the director priorities is going to be, okay, let's execute a deliberate plan, just similar to the driving the S rates down, but with our digital strategy across the Directorate to make some measurable gains. So yeah, those are the first. I would say those are the first set of priorities I have as the new PEO.
Sir, I know a number of your teammates are going to be watching this. Any thoughts to share with them?
Absolutely. So let me start with things I shared in my all call, just as a reminder in case people slept through that part of it. But there was some professional and personal guiding principles I just wanted to reemphasize. I have 6 of them. They're very quick. I won't belabor them, but I'll just list them off. The first is integrity. Whatever we do, we have to make sure integrity first. It's a core value for all airmen. And when I say all airmen, that includes our civilian workforce. So have integrity, doing the right thing when people are not watching, right? Second is to continue to take initiative. Don't wait for somebody to tell you to go do something to improve it. If you think there's an opportunity, I think in this business as acquisition professionals, we are paid, not just to follow a checklist, but to be critical thinkers. Along those lines, the third one is adding value. Ask yourself every day, have I added value to the mission and contributed? Fourth is, I learned this from some mentors of mine, make sure we demonstrate 100% effort, but not necessarily 100% perfection, right? So it's okay to make mistakes and take risk, but calculated risk. If you're unsure on what risk you're allowed to take in your area of responsibility, then talk to your supervisor about that. Fifth, I would just emphasize over communicate. Bad news never gets better with time. We've heard that adage, but yeah, we can never over communicate. And we have whatever area we're working on tends to be probably the most important thing in the world. we all think that way. So, but don't just assume other people know the ins and outs of your effort.
Yeah.
So communicate that with your leadership. And then finally, just mutual respect, right? We like to say diversity and inclusion. I think inclusion is the key word there, and then diversity will follow. So show that mutual respect to one another as professionals. And then finally, from a mission standpoint, I think what I'd like our directorate to know is, find ways to actually contain cost and schedule growth, keep our industry partners honest, do some radical teaming with them to keep them on track. We're going to sink or swim with our industry partners, right? We need to do that. 2, I think understanding our customer, which is our Air Force Global Strike Command customers' priorities, and also helping them to inform requirements and what's in the realm of the possible technically. 3rd, like I said, following what we should do, not what we could do. Like I said, I mentioned innovation and DMM with that earlier, but like even with small business innovative research or other projects we're doing, just ask yourselves, all right, am I doing what we should do to achieve the mission, not just things we could do to get the mission done? Yeah. And then finally, keep and deliver on our commitments. So we all have an area of responsibility, or we're part of an IPT or a team. We can't do it alone, but we should strive to always keep our commitments, not just to Global Strike Command, but even to each other, and to hold each other accountable to make sure we're giving our best effort and getting that integrated capability out to the warfighter as quickly as possible. So I hope that those are some things our team members can take away for my message to them.
One other question for you. Your team is super important, or the work that they do is so important in keeping the Air Force bomber fleet in flight and operational. And I would love just to get your quick perspective on, why the Air Force, the bomber fleet is important to the fight.
Yeah, great question. Well, you hear a lot, right, especially now with the shift in focus from platforms to actual capability and mission threads and kill chains. You think about what the bomber fleet brings to the fight from a long range kill chain perspective, and especially our LO, low observable assets, right? And what they're going to bring to the fight, or what they have brought and what they're going to bring to stay non-attributable, and the range we can do things from, right? That's just certain things fighters can't do. That's things, tankers obviously support us to do that mission, but we're in a class of our own doing those things. Like in a fight tonight scenario in the Pacific, we're going to be relied on for that global reach and the ability to inflict pain where others can't. And also, we're a key node in this whole battle management architecture that's being built. You know, how we are connected through NC3 comms to connectivity, you know, to other sensors, to other domains like space eventually. You know, so we're a key part of that architecture. We in the bomber community. Without us, you know, they can't close the kill chain and get ultimately to get that weapon on target. So I think sometimes we forget about that because we're the unsung hero. And then, not to mention, we're super responsive, and I love the fact that our bombers are a show of force, not just at air shows, but our adversaries are watching, and when they see our bombers flying, it sends a message, you know, that we're there, we're ready. That's really unique with our fleet, and we should be proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, it's really cool the work that your team does. You know, you all are really, you know, behind the scenes heroes. You know, we see the aircraft, but we don't really see the folks behind the scenes making sure that that aircraft continues to fly. So the work you all do is amazing. It really is.
Thank you. We got a great team, that's for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So sir, again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.